Hello, McFatter Technical High School students and parents. Happy to see you again this week. I am Jeanette Johnson, your director and principal at McFatter Technical College and Technical High School. It is Thursday, September 24th, and we welcome you to another edition of our weekly updates. As always, with me are two faces you have come to know and love. Our assistant principal in charge of the high school, Mr. Darrell Harris.
Hello there.
Good morning, Mr. Harris. And our magnet coordinator, Miss Lily DeCastro.
Good morning.
Morning. I hope you guys are doing great.
We are.
Okay. So parents and students, we had intended originally this week, we wanted to give you some operational items about the school, including some club information, but we've decided to hold off onto that till next week because as you probably have heard, either from watching the school board meetings this week or from the news, the district is moving towards its preparations to provide on-campus instruction as an option for students. And you all have a choice to make. So we wanted to spend this week's session talking about what that on-campus option may look like and how you need to make that choice. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So the first thing we need to be sure that everyone understands is that once the district returns to on-campus educational opportunities for those who choose it, our bell schedule changes for everyone, both those who are on campus and those who will be learning at home. So we wanted to lead off with that because even if you've already decided that you're going to stay remote, we wanted you to know that one change that will affect all of you are the school and class times. We believe this will begin on October 14th. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but at whatever point it does begin, and we'll give you plenty of notice, you need to know that the class times and the bell schedule change for everyone. So we wanted to pull that up for a second so that you can all see that and know exactly what that is going to mean. And hopefully, Mr. Harris or Mr. Castro, can you confirm that it's on the screen?
It is.
Okay, great. So for our purposes, mostly we're going to be looking at this regular class schedule right here. We will have some early release days, and those will follow this schedule. And we'll remind you of that when we get closer. But for now, what we want you to focus on is this. And we will be posting this to our social media. We'll push it out through the weekly email. But we wanted you to see, first, the biggest change is knowing that our school start and end times change. Instead of 8:30, we will be going back to what is our typical 9:15 start time and our 4:10 dismissal time. You can see in here that the class periods are 91 minutes long, and the lunch is a little bit longer than the lunch you've been getting in the remote environment. It's 39 minutes long. Historically, here on our campus, we've needed that slightly longer lunch period in order to accommodate because our students all take lunch at the same time. So this is going to be the schedule for everyone once the first day of on-campus instruction is provided. And again, we'll talk about when that is, but we wanted you to kind of mark in your brains now that starting on that date in October, school's going to start for everybody at 9:15. We wanted to be sure that everyone heard that message loud and clear. So with that said, we also now want to tell you about the process you need to follow in order to make and record your choice. And so for that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Harris, who's going to explain the survey that all parents are needing to respond to. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And so the survey is definitely an opportunity that you should take advantage of. And that's for the student and parents to make a decision about what type of learning you would like to receive moving forward. And that survey, first of all, it does close at 5 p.m. on September the 29th. So make sure that you make your selection by 5 p.m. on September the 29th. Now, students, you can find that survey on your Canvas page where you can make your choice. Now, in the past, there were 3 options, but this time there are only 2 choices that you can make. One choice is for 100% learning on campus. That means you will come on campus each day. The other option is 100% online, like you have been doing thus far. So please, you have one of those options that you must select. Now, if for some reason you don't make a choice or you forget to make a decision, you will be moved over to 100% online. So just make sure that you make a decision. Otherwise, you're going to be defaulted to 100% online instruction. And it's very important that you make a decision because we have a lot of planning that we have to do as far as making sure the campus is prepared for our students that choose to come back on campus. So do that. In the past, we know there was a hybrid choice that will not be available this time. So there are two options. Please make your decision by the 29th of September, 5 p.m. that it does close. So we'll be prepared for whatever choice you make, but we want you to have a choice and have a voice on how you would like to receive your instruction moving forward. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Harris.
You're welcome.
So let's talk about what those choices mean. So for those of you who choose the on-campus learning option, first let's talk about the dates. They've been proposed. They were discussed at the school board meeting this week. We expect this to be finalized next week. The proposed return dates would be October 14th for any of our 9th grade students who choose to return to on-campus instruction, and all other students, 10th, 11th, and 12th, their first date of on-campus instruction would be the 20th. Now, daily instruction in the remote environment is still going on this whole time. So, for example, in between the 14th and the 20th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders are still going to class daily just through the remote environment until the 20th begins. And remember, assuming the 14th is that first date for on-campus instruction for 9th graders, that date will change the bell schedule for all students. And we have to do that because some classes are mixed grade levels. So the minute we go to that on-campus bell schedule, we have to go on to that bell schedule for everybody. So again, the proposed dates of return, which we expect to be confirmed next week, would be October 14th for any 9th graders returning to campus and the 20th for all 10th through 12th graders. So let's talk a little bit about what that on-campus experience will be like. We want you to understand that the instructional delivery will still be through the e-learning model because the teachers are still going to be working both with students face-to-face and students at home. So the instruction will still be delivered through that remote learning model that you've been working with since we started school in August. What that does mean is that any student who returns to on-campus instruction who has been issued a school district laptop, you will need to bring that laptop with you every day. So you'll bring that back and forth to school. If you were not issued a school district laptop and you have your own personal laptop or portable device, we would ask that you bring that as well. If you do not have a device that you can bring with you, we're going to need you to notify us of that. And you can do that by emailing one of the three of us so that we can make plans. As you might imagine, we don't have many laptops left on campus because we distributed so many, both in the spring and again in the fall. That's why those of you who have them will need to bring them with you. We're also asking if you have headphones, particularly headphones with a microphone, that you bring those as well. There may be days in class periods where you don't need to use them, but having them handy would be helpful for all of the students who are on campus. Now, although the learning will be delivered through the e-learning model, you will obviously have the opportunity, there go my lights, to engage in live interaction with your classmates who are in the room with you. You'll continue to be engaging remotely through the computer with your classmates who are at home, and you'll have that opportunity for live interaction with the teacher or substitute or class personnel, whoever is in the classroom with you, which most of the time will be your classroom teacher, but at times may be a substitute or some other school personnel. So you will have the opportunity to engage with those individuals in a live format. Social distancing will be maintained at all times. Students who ride the buses, the bus capacity will be reduced to accommodate only so many students who can be social distanced on the bus. So social distancing will be maintained at all times on the buses and at all times while on campus. Masks covering both the nose and the mouth, not face shields, but masks must be worn by all students at all times on the bus and at all times on campus except while eating at lunch. We do want to also be sure you're aware, and you'll see this referenced on the survey, I believe. Until we know how many students want to return for on-campus instruction, there are two caveats we need to give everyone. First, transportation has indicated that if there are more requests for bus transportation than can be accommodated while maintaining social distance, they may have to limit access for bus transportation. The second caveat is until we know here at the school how many students are returning and in what classes, you need to be aware that we may have to limit either the number of students who can come on campus on any one day, or we may have to establish what we're calling an overflow room. If there are too many students in one particular class at one particular period, in order to social distance, we may have to move students into an overflow room. We don't know that those things will happen, but we won't know that until we have all of your survey responses and we know how many students there will be involved. So we just wanted to be sure you had that information available as you consider your choice. Now, there are a few other things that we need you to be aware of and attending to as you prepare for your choice and the possibility of returning for on-campus for those of you who make that choice. And for that, I wanted to ask Ms. DeCastro to speak about some of those considerations.
Hi, everybody. There are several very important things that we've been talking about from before now that are becoming more pressing. First of all, the back to school forms. Many parents have gone online and completed the actual form, but if we don't have that confirmation, we cannot approve and process. And especially now where students may or may not be on campus, we need to be able to use the proper phone numbers, email addresses for parents. So the only way to update that is through the back to school forms. So to access that, once again, browardschools.com/BTS. And if you're having any issues with it, please reach out and let us know so that we can help problem solve that. We did have a few parents who had concerns and we were able to resolve them fairly easily. The second thing is the school lunch program. Historically, parents have completed the application within the first 10 days of school, but we weren't on campus, so it was not as pressing. But in addition to actually having the ability to eat, it also does provide resources potentially for free SAT and ACT tests. So even if you're not on campus, we suggest that all students do take that opportunity, well, parents take that opportunity to complete that information. And that can be found on the Broward Schools website. It is no longer the applyforlunch.com site. They have moved it. So on the Broward Schools site, there's a whole section on school meals. I don't want to give the wrong link because depending on what your need is, you would go to varying places. So just search on the Broward Schools site for school lunch. I will put the choices in the underneath section when I post this video on the website. The third piece is we will receive the traditional lunches for our students who choose to eat them from Indian Ridge as we have in the past. We are not 100% sure of how open, how many options there will be at the McFatter cafeteria and our bistro and all of our choices there. So we want parents to be ready no matter what we have available at that time. So definitely do the apply for lunch and be prepared. Bringing a school lunch is a good idea also because of the social distancing piece. Having your own food, if it is a possibility, means you don't have to stand in a line with 6 feet between you and the person in front and behind you to acquire food. When students do return to campus, you will have a school issued ID done for you, and students will be expected, as they have in the past, to wear those IDs. More important than ever, with our masked students, we need to know who's high school versus who's adults on campus. So IDs are going to become even more critical than ever, and we will take care of that in the first week or so of returning to face-to-face. As students who do drive to school, be prepared. You will need to come in with a copy of your license, proof of insurance, and registration for the car. I'm not sure what the price of the parking decal will be, but we do need to have everybody registered for their parking as well. I think that was all of my stuff. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I think you covered it all. I just do want to reiterate related to the lunches. For the students who may not understand what we talk about when we talk about the traditional school lunch versus the McFatter meals, for those of you who are returning students, the McFatter food is the food that you historically went into the building to buy, either because you went into the cafe and got the burgers, the fries, the tuna melts, or you went in and went to the right and went down what we call our gourmet or our food production line that's prepared by our adult culinary students. The traditional school lunch, the one that the district makes, is the one for the line that typically would form out on the mall. That is the one that Ms. DeCastro is saying will be available for all students for sure. We do not know yet which, if any, of those McFatter food options will be available. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, some of that requires, the right line requires the work of our adult culinary students. And we do not know if our adult culinary students will be operating from campus yet. The second thing is we're trying to make sure we're maintaining safety, security at all times. So if we open those lines, they will be more of a grab and go format where it's pre-packaged meals. And we're just trying to assess, once we see how many students we have returning, that will drive what we're able to make available. And so you've heard us mention several times that some of this depends on us knowing how many students there are, because that drives what the safety considerations need to be. So I just wanted to reinforce that, which does mean, by the way, there may not be McFatter fries for a while. We're kind of famous for our McFatter fries. We don't know. We may be able to make them available, but it's going to be dependent upon what the numbers are when we first return to campus. So speaking of safety and security, as we sort of wrap up this week, a few other things that I just wanted to reference related to safety and security steps that are being taken, because I know that's a primary concern for so many people, students, staff, parents, everyone. We've already talked about the fact that social distancing and mask wearing will be expected and enforced at all times. In terms of access to campus, obviously access to campus will be allowed for our staff and for our students who have opted for on-campus instruction. Visitor access, other access by other individuals, will remain largely by appointment only. So it won't be an open campus in terms of people being able to come on whenever they want. Obviously, a parent needing to come on campus, for example, to pick up a child, would be allowed to do that. We also wanted to mention that, like all schools, we will have established what's being referred to as an isolation room. There is a series of health self-assessments that every student and parent is asked to do before the student returns to school for that day. There's about 7 or 8 questions that they're expected to be able to answer along the lines of, do I have a temperature, et cetera. We'll provide that next week. So the assumption is that students and parents will perform that self-check first. However, once students are on campus, if we do have students who appear to be exhibiting symptoms that may be signs of possible COVID-19 exposures, that student will be escorted to an isolation room, which is staffed by healthcare professionals, probably our school nurse, who will be able to assess the student against a checklist of the typical COVID symptoms. If the student appears to be exhibiting symptoms that are indicative of potential COVID, we will then at that point have the student remain in the isolation room and the parent or guardian be contacted to pick the student up in order to take them home and perhaps get tested. If they are cleared by the nurse at that point, they would be allowed to return to campus and to their classrooms. The other thing we wanted to mention is what happens if there is a COVID exposure. The district has a protocol that it follows in terms of deciding who needs to quarantine and how the school community gets notified. Anytime there is a confirmed COVID case, I can assure you it will not be kept private. Obviously, the identity of the person is private, but we are transparent in terms of notifying the school community. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly how that protocol works on our message next week, because this one is already running pretty long, but we wanted to assure you as you prepare to make your decision by the 29th that our school is fully open and transparent anytime there's a confirmed COVID case, in terms of us notifying people who may have been exposed to that individual and indicating quarantines, which does mean, for example, that we could, if we had a class where a student in that class wound up testing positive for COVID, or if the teacher tested positive for COVID, that class needs to be prepared. They may be directed to revert back to remote learning for a period usually of 14 days. So parents, you do need to be aware, if you choose the on-campus option, you need to be prepared for the possibility that if there is a COVID exposure, your son or daughter may have to revert back to remote learning for a given period of time while the exposure period transpires. Again, we can talk a little bit more about that next week, but we wanted to keep this particular one as short as we could. That said, as we wrap things up, we also want to be sure that if you are considering the return to campus option for your child and you have any questions at all that you feel haven't been answered in this has probably been about 20 minutes already. If you have any questions at all that you feel you need an answer to before you make your choice, we want you to please reach out to any of the three of us. We are available to answer your questions. I am Jeanette.Johnson at BrowardSchools.com. That is JEANETTE.JOHNSON at BrowardSchools.com. Mr. Harris?
And I'm Daryl.Harris at BrowardSchools.com. That's DARRYL.Harris, HARRIS at BrowardSchools with the S on the end of it.com.
And Mr. Castro?
And I'm Lily DeCastro at Lily.DeCastro at BrowardSchools.com, spelled LILLIE.DECASTRO at BrowardSchools.com.
And again, we wanted to be sure you knew that because many of you have probably already made up your mind, but those of you who are still trying to decide what to do, we understand that you may have lots of questions and we want to be available to answer any of those before you have to make that choice. So just a reminder, reach out to any of the three of us if you have any questions that haven't been addressed in this particular video, or since it will be posted on social media, if you want to post your question on social media, we can answer it that way as well. But feel free to reach out to us. Be sure to respond to that survey by the 29th at 5 p.m. Again, those who do not respond will remain in the 100% remote environment through the end of the semester, which is the beginning of January. Mr. Harris, Mr. Castro, I think we touched upon everything we said we wanted to be sure we covered this week. Did we miss anything?
Just want to remind everyone of the dates, that they are proposed dates at this point, and we're waiting on the final vote. Don't want anyone upset later if it moves or does not come out that way.
Good, excellent point. And part of the uncertainty is, of course, the school board, which is making the decisions around the dates. They are obligated to make decisions that are responsive to the community conditions. And so these proposed dates are all based around what's currently happening in the community. If that changes, their decisions and recommendations would change as well. So, you know, we've been so grateful since March. Our school community has been so willing to be understanding and flexible as we've moved through this process, trying to provide the best experience possible while keeping safety and health of everyone as our first priority. So we appreciate that continued flexibility as we talk about this proposed return to campus. Mr. Harris, did you have anything else we missed?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we will sign off for this week. Again, if you have a question you'd like an answer to before the 29th, feel free to reach out. Okay, we appear to have had a technical glitch right there at the very end. We don't have much left, but we did want to be sure that we came back so that you all knew what we said at the very end, which is that there is no school on Monday for anyone. We know that many of you will be observing a holiday on Monday, but we wanted to be sure that everyone was aware there's no school. So you won't have the remote instruction. Don't log on, take the day off. With that, enjoy the long weekend. Have a great week, and we will see you here next Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.